Hey guys and girls, before we get into today's episode, I want to apologize for the last two episodes we put out. Had a couple minor technical issues. The Fixed Blade episode, there's a huge chunk of time missing. Not sure what happened when I converted the file over and uploaded it, but long story short, that's gone. I'm looking for the original file so I can re-upload it. If I do, it'll publish as a different episode. That way you guys get the full content for the Fixed Blade episode. And depending on when you listen to the last episode with all three of us, it may have cut off abruptly. If it did cut off abruptly, just delete it and re-download it. The correct episode is up. I did it pretty shortly after it went up, but if you listen right away, then you probably got the shortened cutoff version. My apologies, that does happen sometimes. And with that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome back to the Tiga Tactics Podcast, a show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including martial arts, combat sports, and street combatives. Our resident MANs, martial arts nerds, include black belt holder in 4 different styles, Patrick Vuong.
Salutations, self-defense nerds.
And I'm your other co-host, retired Army Special Forces soldier and champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR Perperis. We do not have the good Dr. Conrad with us today. He is, busy probably getting another black belt or something.
Quite possibly. You never know with him.
So you get another episode with just me and Patrick. And since me and Patrick are on the podcast, we like knives a lot. So you get another knife episode.
Yeah.
Good for you. And we want to talk about something not necessarily Tiga Tactics specific, but a style or system or whatever we want to call it of knife combatives that I know we both have some exposure to, and just kind of give some initial thoughts and some recommendations and what our experience has been in something called martial blade concepts.
Yeah.
So why don't you start off telling us a little bit about martial blade concept? Actually, let's start off. Tell me about like how much exposure you've had to it. I'll tell about my exposure, and then we can go like what is it and
sure.
Some of the perks and drawbacks.
I have probably been to 3 martial blade concept seminars and then had 1 or 2 private sessions with a local instructor in NBC. His name is Ui. And yeah, it's so, a handful, not as much. I don't have a tremendous amount of experience in it, but I do like it.
Yeah. All right. So I did a full weekend seminar with martial blade concepts. And when I say a full weekend, I literally mean a full weekend. I think Saturday we did something like 10 hours or something insane.
Whoa.
And then yeah, because it was the normal seminar, and then there was like, and if you want to stick around for a bonus 2 hours, we're gonna do some gun stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm here. I'm obviously sticking around. And then on Monday it was like another 6 hours or something like that. I don't know. It was a lot.
Wow.
So I did that one weekend, and I've gone up to train with their kind of the local group in Maine once, and I'm actually supposed to, at the day we're recording this, I'm supposed to go up and train with them again on Sunday. Which every time I go up, because it's kind of a drive, there's like it's kind of like a 5 or 6 hour training day. So it's infrequent, but it's a lot at a time. So
wow,
yeah.
That's pretty intense.
So tell us a little bit about Marshall. I know you know the owner a lot better than I do, or the founder, I should say. So tell us a little bit about Martial Blade Concepts and
Martial Blade Concepts was founded by Michael Janich, and Michael has a really cool background. He's pretty humble about it, but he was in the Army and he went into intelligence, and then through that he worked with the DIA, which I believe stands for Defense Intelligence Agency. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also for the NSA. This was during the maybe late 80s, early 90s, and so he was stationed in Vietnam actually, and at that time we didn't have open relations with them. It was still very, I wouldn't say it was hostile, but it was not friendly by any means, and so he was still kind of in enemy territory, so to speak, and his job there was to find KIA, kill in action, bodies and recover them if he can. And he had to kind of use a lot of subterfuge and things like that, keep things hidden. And because he was working there, he learned how to speak Vietnamese, read, write, and speak in Vietnamese. And because I'm Vietnamese, I was like, wow, I got to test this, right? And so I started speaking to Vietnamese, and I've never been more embarrassed in my life. His Vietnamese was like 1,000 times better than mine. Uh, and it's kind of funny because my parents, I grew up, I was born and raised in Canada. My parents tell me you have a white person's accent when you speak Vietnamese. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know. Started talking to him. He's got like, he's super fluent. He has like very little accent at all. It embarrassed me to no end. So very impressive. And then I learned that he also knows how to speak Chinese as well. I don't know if it's Mandarin or Cantonese, but apparently he's a man of many talents. Super intelligent, extremely intelligent, very humble, um, and done some pretty cool stuff. He trained in a bunch of different martial arts growing up, but never really like got to dive into it because of where he grew up. There just wasn't a lot of great instructors. He did a little bit of I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm just going to say he did some martial arts when he was younger, but not as consistent as he would like, just because of the quality of instructors in his area. And eventually, he started learning Filipino martial arts, and then started learning some Silat, and then uh, got certified as an instructor in a particular system that I cannot remember, and I don't want to say the incorrect thing, so I'm not going to say the name. And then eventually, he realized like there's a lot of martial arts out there that's crap. He kind of came to the same conclusion as we did, which a lot of it's fake. There's too much martial arts myth, too many hypotheticals, not enough empirical evidence. And so that's how eventually martial blade concepts came to be, was that he would take the elements that worked in Filipino martial arts and the other arts that he'd studied and created a system that made sense, that was logical, and that was effective. And so it's not quite a martial art. It definitely leans more towards combatives. And anybody who has done Filipino martial arts and then done MBC, you're kind of like, oh, I see what you did here. Like you basically he stripped away a lot of the BS and
Yeah.
just kind of gives you, makes you functional very quickly. Would you agree, Evan?
Yeah, for the most part, it is like it's kind of what FMA what I was expecting when I walked before I knew anything about FMA, and I was kind of like had seen some stuff. It was kind of what I was MBC is kind of what I expected when I showed up at FMA, and FMA turned to be a little more art than I was expecting. Um, and
Right.
what I really like about MBC is they use essentially your carry knife for all of their drills. So any sort of like hubud or like tapping drill, it's you're using the small folding blade like you would like most people carry in America.
Right.
So that's one of the things I really appreciated. It's like I don't have this 20-inch sword or stick. Yeah, that stuff is fun to do, but
Yeah.
it was I like the a little more practicality of NBC. The one thing I was surprised about when I went to the first seminar is I was expecting something even more stripped down, kind of like Tiga Tactics or Medusa, or I've been to one of Ed Calderon's knife seminar
Mhm.
things. I was expecting something a little more like that, and it was honestly, it was like he kept a lot of like the FMA, so it's like almost like it's like a full system. It's
Mhm.
it's a lot of drills and it's in depth, but the way he builds it is very logical, and it reminds me a lot of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, where you're essentially fighting to a certain position, and from there, you kind of run this like we call it like a knife template, a master technique.
Mhm.
So like where you learn that technique and then you kind of build off of that, to kind of fight to get into that position and then run that template over. So
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. And I do like the idea of working with EDC knives. I failed to mention that in his day job, Mike works for Spyderco Knives.
yeah,
And I believe his title is Special Projects Coordinator or Special Projects Manager. And so he's very influential there. They've actually produced a couple of his or several knife designs that he came up with, and they've mass produced those. The most famous one, I guess, is the Yojimbo series, Yojimbo, and then Yojimbo 2. And I have to say, it's one of the best EDC slash defensive knives that is in folder form. It just fits perfectly in my hand. It's almost as if him and I have the same grip, the same hand, basically. Because once I grab it and I hang on to it, it just feels perfect. And I can't say that about too many other knives out there. So he's very multi-talented, an instructor, designer, you know, army veteran, all kinds of special talents. He did, like you said, it's a very logical. I would say it's a complete system because there are a lot of templates and there are no like when we're talking about blades and things like that. There's no like abstractness to it. You know what I mean? Like you can go to like a certain FMA styles and there'll be like a lot of holes in what they're saying. You're kind of like, I don't know about this. But with Mike and NBC, he's thought everything through. He's thought all of the angles and all the most common types of attacks. And so yeah, it's really well made. I don't train in it, but I do like what I have learned from it.
And I'll default to you. You've got more FMA experience, so I'll default to your opinion on that, on the kind of comparison between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
But go for it.
The one thing I really, really do like in terms of physical technique is that he always has he has a finisher basically, which is the comma cut, which is you're cutting to generally you're cutting to the people's legs, your attacker's leg, with the idea that if you cut them in the legs, they can't run after you. And I always thought that's a really cool thing to do. Obviously, you could still possibly potentially kill somebody if you cut them in the femoral artery, but kind of like when you pull back a little bit and not get into too much of the detail, it's kind of a cool thing to say, like, I was just trying to cut his tendon and he fell down, and I ran away. I could have easily slit his throat, but I didn't do that, So I kind of like that idea. It's a little bit more humane as opposed to 99.9% of Filipino martial arts instructors I've trained with are like, oh, you cut their carotid artery and then you rip out their esophagus and then you stab them in the heart, and they're just like, it's just like death, 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 death. And whereas like Michael's just like, let's try to be a little bit more humane. Of course, there's the chance that this person could die, but hey, they attacked you and now you're defending yourself.
And one of the good things he points out is like the humane, quote unquote, humane targets, like the muscles and the tendons, also the nerve target is also in the same place, and essentially the vascular targets are also in the same place, right? So you're quote unquote targeting the muscle, but you're getting everything, right? Like, yeah, it was cool. I've enjoyed the training I've done with them, and like I said, I'm going back. Since I stopped training at a Filipino martial arts gym, but I like when I go train with the NBC guys, it's enough like Filipino martial arts that I can still work on those skills. And, the couple of years I did FMA, it transfers over really well. So it's not like I'm the quote unquote the new guy, but I also like I feel like I can jump in and at least hang or like have an idea of what I'm doing. A lot of times the drills are like slightly modified, so it takes me a couple of reps to get into it. But then once we get going, it feels very natural. It feels like what I was doing at FMA gyms.
Right. Yeah, they do hubad, lubad. They do sombrada. Everything might be a little bit different flavor, so to speak, but the commonalities are there. And for maybe we didn't explain it before, but for people who've never trained with them before, is the idea of his system is that you want to, when possible, cut your attacker's muscles, tendons, ligaments, so that they no longer have the ability to hold on to their weapon if possible. And so every angle is generally met with a cut to one of their mechanical parts, which scientifically that makes total sense. You cut a person's tendon on the inside of their forearm, they can't grip their knife anymore, and then they drop their weapon. So theoretically, you don't need to slit their throat because they're not a threat anymore. They're not holding a weapon anymore. So I do like that. I do like how it's ingrained in their system as to, the stopping power is not so much I'm going to stab you in the heart. The stopping power is I'm going to basically defang the snake, prevent you from holding your weapon so that you're no longer a threat.
Do we want to talk about critiques of the system?
I'll allow you to do that. Mike is a friend of mine. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. I love him, and I like his system. So if you have any critiques, by all means.
Like I'm actively training. I plan to continue training. I think it's fun. I think it's good skills to learn. As far as critiques, the so one critique is you are pulling when you pull a knife, you are pulling a lethal instrument, right?
Mhm.
So, I've heard other people don't like the system because like doing anything other than I've had other instructors from other systems specifically be like doing anything other than killing someone when you take out your knife is stupid. So I've heard that as a complaint.
Mhm.
Like don't even bother to, like just kill them. Because the court is going to look at you legally like you're trying to kill them because you pulled out a lethal weapon.
Right.
Uh, so I understand that, but again, not everyone at the same time, like not everyone wants to train to like eviscerate someone,
Right.
you know,
Right.
cut their head mostly off. So like
Yes.
I, I get both sides. At the end of the day, we are anyone who trains in martial arts is more similar than they are different. Even if you disagree on some fundamental principles,
Mhm.
in my opinion, right? So
Right.
especially and then in knife combatives, it's so niche, right? Like we're really getting into the details here.
Oh yeah.
Um, the other, so I'd say that's one, and the other one is just conflict in general. Real world conflict tends to be really aggressive and really violent. Um,
Mhm.
so I think it's cool to know where these targets are, as long as people have an understanding that when it starts going down, you might just be cutting whatever because
Right.
it's going to be really chaotic. So as long as you understand it may not the real world application may not look as clean
Mhm.
as you're doing in the drilling.
Right.
So
Right. As
that be my other kind of like concern. And I think like when I issue these critiques, like I think the guys training understand that. How much of it is explicitly stated, uh, you know,
right.
it depends on who's teaching, I guess.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like Conrad says, when it comes to knives and you're holding a knife and someone is attacking you, there's only good targets and great targets.
Yeah.
So you're again, like I said before in a previous episode, steel will always beat flesh. Yeah, if you're gonna cut somebody, no matter where you cut them, they're gonna bleed. So I understand where you're coming from with that. Yeah,
I,
and again, we're
I,
not
sorry.
lawyers.
Yeah.
We're not lawyers. We don't have that. We can't
Right.
give you legal advice, but I have talked to some lawyers, and again, the law changes in states too. So, but I've talked to lawyers in California, and I've talked to police officers from Utah and other places, and they say that yeah, generally you pull out a knife, it doesn't matter if you open the blade or not. It's seen as you're using lethal force.
For personal reasons, I'm not sure of the exact term I want to use here, but I like having the idea of having the knowledge of a less lethal knife system in my brain.
Mhm.
Um, I like that makes me sleep better at night. I don't like, whether I use that or not in like in a real world situation where I have to defend myself. I like having that being like, well, I also know the continuum of force, even if I'm not going to go, even if I'm not necessarily use the lightest level of force, the lower level of force. I like having that in my brain,
Mhm.
and I think there's value in being able to explain to someone, um, you know, why you did what you did, especially if you can talk and like, hey, I was trying to just stop him from attacking me, and I was specifically targeting this, even if in the middle of the scuffle, it was just complete chaos, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Being able to like explain that, I think, like it makes me whether it's going to work in court, I can't tell you, but it makes me sleep better at night.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I know we talked about it in the Christmas episode, but if you're looking for like online resource with a lot of those drills, he's got like a essentially a monthly subscription thing. And one of the coolest things there's a ton of videos. There's like an obscene amount of videos in there. But he also has in there his book, Contemporary Knife Targeting. Have you read that one?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so I love that because there's this famous timetable of death by Fairburn from
Hmm.
all the World War II combatives guys know it, and he goes through and basically like debunks the timetable of death, which is
Right.
like he just did a very good job, and he explained the reason behind it, and essentially very similar to Tiga tactics. It's like the timetable of death was a way to get people who are not very well trained to be focused on their minds, like to give them confidence. Essentially,
Mhm.
it was like if you have the will to survive, you can. If you stab this guy here, he'll survive for 30 seconds. So soldiers would be like, "Oh, I can make it 30 seconds," even
Right.
though the guy might fight on for 3 minutes.
Right.
But by that point, you're already in too deep. He doesn't realize it that
Right.
but they're essentially like psyoping their own people in World
Right.
War II because they
Yes.
had such little time to train them.
Yes.
Um, so like that book alone is to me was worth is paying for a month to kind of get in there and get access to those documents in addition to the videos. So
Yeah.
lots of cool
Yeah.
stuff there. And
Absolutely.
he's like I can't remember the name. He's worked with some of the World War II combatives dudes. Is it Applegate?
Yes.
He always
Applegate.
Yeah, he like physically knows that dude, or when he was still alive, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So
They had worked together, and they wrote a book together.
yeah,
So they're pretty close.
so that's pretty cool. Just that like again, I'm not big on lineage, but
Mhm.
still getting to like work and train with someone like that is still a uh, cool bullet point for your personal history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you want more content from Mike, he also was a part of Best Defense, is a TV show, and where they but debunk a lot of myths, but also provide a lot of really good real world um, defense in scenarios that are very common. Um, and really well done. Again, Mike's a super intelligent guy, and so I got to say, like, some of the things I learned from him influenced me in Tiga Tactics, because it's a lot of things that I knew intuitively, like a lot of the BS, the martial arts myths, but he was really the one who kind of like showed me, like, oh, I should be very scientific about this, and I should break it down, and I should watch the videos and really analyze things. And he has such a great analytical mind that it was an influence on me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, final shout outs we need to give before we take off for the day.
Yes, so I apologize. I mispronounced his name earlier as Uli Gepard. He is the NBC concepts instructor who helped me with sort of private lessons, and he's a really good guy. He's an instructor under Mike. So thank you to Uli. Obviously, thank you to Michael Janish for being a cool friend and sharing his knowledge with us. And yeah, and all the guys, like everybody who trains under Uli and Mike, they're all really cool guys. Like some of them, we Evan and we know them online. They have tons and tons of experience, right? But they're super humble, and I think like-minded people tend to come together and be attracted to that camaraderie, and so there are a lot of guys under Mike who have tremendous experience, real world experience. They've killed bad guys and they've gone to war. They're police officers and they've busted heads. But when we get together, there's no ego. Everybody's really cool. So thank you to all of the whole NBC family.
Cool. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Defend ME, so Defend Maine. That's the group I train with when I go up and train with them in person. So Jason, Tom, and then Scott comes in from. I'm not sure where Scott comes in from. I don't know their last names. So that's and then I did get to train that weekend seminar, that first one I went to. I did get to train with Michael in person, which was cool. And I did ask him about some of his military background, and we talked a little bit between the lines, which was kind of fun, about some of his background, which I always enjoy. So
Nice.
it's good stuff. All right, upcoming seminars, events people need to be aware of.
Yes, I'm not sure when this will be published, but we do have our knife and pistol defense seminar in the greater Baltimore area, May 3rd, May first weekend of May. I believe that's May 3rd, May 4th. So definitely look into that. Sign up for that early. It's probably going to be sold out based on our attendance from our West Coast debut of that seminar. And it kind of makes sense. A lot of people are concerned about gun violence that's on the rise, and of course, knives are always scary. Knives are from the beginning of mankind. Sharp sticks, knives are edge weapons are very scary, and so we are going to tackle those two nightmare scenarios of what happens if someone points a gun at you or threatens you with a gun, and what happens if someone attacks you with a knife. So, and if you're unarmed, if you're empty-handed, what do you do? So we're gonna bust a whole bunch of martial arts myths that deal with those two scenarios, and then give you no BS approach to dealing with them.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's always one of the best weekends of the year, so I highly recommend if you're in the East Coast or you want to travel to head out and hit up the seminar. Because me, Patrick, and Conrad will be there all weekend teaching. So looking forward to it.
Awesome.
We'll drop some links down in the show notes down below. Again, follow us on social media. Train with Tiga Tactics Online. We'll drop those links down below. Again, distilled combatives from real world CCTV footage. That's what Tiga Tactics develops their tactics from. So great way to train for yourself or train your family, or if you're just an experienced martial artist and you want to know what's the baseline I should be teaching someone before they spend the next decade of their life doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like I would start at Tiga Tactics. It's always my recommendation. Check that out down below, and we will see you in the next episode. And before we let you guys go completely, if you want some real-world combative, pure combative kind of knife defense, please check out EDC Knife from Tiga Tactics. I'll also drop that link down below. Honestly, one of my favorite courses from Tiga Tactics, so I would recommend take it. If you haven't started taking any Tiga Tactics, I think that's a really great place to start. EDC Knife. And lastly, if you're looking for some good training tools, check out Vulpes Training. They have a ton of great products made from like a hard plastic, and he wraps the handles super nicely, so it's got good grip. Great if you're doing kind of that shadow boxing, Carenza in the air. Great if you are attacking Bob or a training dummy. And if you want to be bold, you can even use it for sparring. It's going to hurt a little bit, but it is a hard plastic, so you can use it for that. You can also use it for cosplay. The amount of selection they have on their website is absolutely insane. I'm going to drop a link down below. Please check that out. They've got swords and knives and pocket sticks and stuff from Star Trek and all sorts of... It's basically like every blade and variant you can think of is on the website. The first product I got from them was Psyoc. It was a Winkler Tomahawk. So if you're familiar with Psyoc, the Tomahawk they sell, or if you've seen the movie or the TV show Terminal List, I got a trainer version of that, and it looks just like it. It has like the right dimensions, but it's got rounded edges, made of hard plastic. I used it for drilling when I took a Paquita University Tomahawk course. You'll hear more about Vulpes the rest of the year. Check them out, and again, we'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Stay alert, stay humble, stay kind.